games. Whoop, let's go. Hursty Games, and this how we do. Now it's time we team.
Hey there guys, welcome back to Hursty Games and welcome to another one to watch prediction video. I say another, we have already made a team 1 sort of prediction, and those are the 11 that I'm sort of the most confident on. So if you haven't checked that video out, then make sure you go onto the channel and check that one out. Today we're looking at team 2, another batch of 11 possible one to watch players that we've had in this transfer window. Now I am not as confident with some of these in team 2. There's also, honestly, they're not the biggest of transfers. So a lot of these ones are sort of the slightly smaller ones that you might see in and amongst some of the bigger ones. There's always a couple of stinkers in there, and I reckon a couple of these could have a good chance. But there's also a couple of very decent cards in this one too. But I think the ones in Team 1 are all relatively likely. There's a couple in this one that I think are relatively likely, but not as exciting. But that is somewhat subjective to the kind of team you're going to build, and also the team you support. You never know, if there's a one to watch from the team you support, you're going to be gassed about it, let's be honest. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the next 11 potential one to watch players for the FIFA 22 one to watch promo. Let's go. Okay, we're going to start off in the League 1, and Jerome Boateng has made his move over to Lyon. Now this is an interesting one. I don't think he had the most game time over at Bayern Munich, and obviously having a German centre-back in the French league is actually quite a cool thing. It helps and opens up a relatively few extra possibilities for links and stuff. But Boateng for me isn't going to be the most amazing starting centre-back. Obviously, I don't know how much he's going to play over in France. I don't know how much game time he's going to be expecting to get, but realistically, this is a chance for potentially a few little upgrades if he has a decent season. Again, I don't think he had the best of seasons at Bayern Munich. I don't even think he played that much football. But if he gets himself a couple of special cards and a couple of upgrades, then obviously this could be a pretty decent starting card. Again, good nation, good league, decent links. Player number 2, a French player actually moving from the French league and going to the Liga Santander. Camavinga made his move to Real Madrid. Now this does kind of mess up the little links that I was talking about in a previous video where I included Camavinga as a perfect link. He's now no longer that perfect link. However, we do know of another perfect link that he would link to, but I think the less said about that, the better. Realistically, I think this guy's going to have a decent starting card, and it's a possibility. It's one of those youngsters that makes a move. Do I think Camavinga is going to get loads and loads of game time? I think initially, possibly not. I think he might feature in a couple of cup games and a couple of little games here and there. And if he proves himself, or if a player in the midfield has a bit of a stinker for Real Madrid, then he could potentially be given a bit more game time than expected. But I think Camavinga would be an interesting one. And again, good nation, good league, good links, as we know, good strong links as well anyway. But realistically, I think he's got a relatively good chance just because of the team he moved to. I think that gives him a pretty good head start, honestly. Now we're going to go back to the Premier League. We're going to go to Leicester, and we're going to look at Daka. Daka, I think, is going to be a phenomenal player. Very impressed by the little bits I've seen of him here and there, and I expect to get him a one to watch. I've upgraded him to an 80. It's a pretty big upgrade on his base card, and I think with him getting a good move to the Prem and proving already to be a half-decent little player in pre-season, and of course last season he got himself a team of the season, I'd be very surprised to see him much less than an 80. The absolute highest I think I'd go to is an 81, just because of the the size of the upgrade for the rating, if that makes sense. But I think Daka is going to be the perfect example of a ridiculously overpowered card. I do think Daka is going to be one of the ones that people are going to try and acquire at the start of the game, because he's going to be quick. Obviously, he's not got a great nation, but being in the Prem is automatically a very, very big plus to him. So all it takes is to get a half-decent either strong link to a Leicester player or just surround him with soft link Premier League players, and he's going to be incredible for starter teams anyway. He's going to be extortionate in price, and I would be surprised to not have him get a couple of upgrades during the season. I think sort of a little bit of rotation between the front three that they have. Daka could easily come on and get himself some goals, and Leicester, having not the greatest of starter seasons in comparison to the last couple of seasons for Leicester, but I still think they're going to be right up amongst it, and I think he's going to be a very important part of their season, and I'd expect to see him get a one to watch. Now moving on to a player who's moved back to their previous club. No, I'm not talking about Ronaldo. No, I'm not talking about Charlie Austin. I'm talking about Antoine Griezmann. Made his move back to Atletico Madrid after being at Barcelona. Now Griezmann, for me, I think I'd expect to see him get a one-to-watch card. I won't lie to you. I think it's a relatively likely occurrence that he gets a one-to-watch card. This was a tricky one for me to predict as well, because although it was kind of well documented that Griezmann didn't have his best football at Barcelona, he got quite a few special cards last FIFA, and I think EA will take that into account. I don't think they'll take into account all of the numbers and everything that he potentially did or didn't output. I think they'll look at that and go, Yeah, alright, we'll go ahead and give him a one to watch card, because also it is a move back to his old club, and I think it's a bit of a replicate on obviously the Suarez card. He didn't move back to Atletico, but he moved from Barca to Atletico, and obviously they won the league. So it'll be interesting to see what they do to Griezmann's card if they do give him one to watch. I'm quite curious as to what the rating will be for Griezmann next season. I've guessed an 88, I'm not too sure, it was a bit of a guesswork, but realistically, decent card, again good league, again good nation, again good links. He's going to be good. Now to a move that actually did surprise me a little bit when it happened, and that is Dan James. He made his move to Leeds from Man United for quite a hefty fee for the level that I think Dan James is at. If there's anyone that can get a player to really turn around and start playing well, though, I think Bielsa is right up there amongst the best in regards to general player improvement. So I think James will be a really interesting one to see how that development goes. And again, because it's a Prem to Prem team, because he was at United and because he's gone to Leeds, a very popular team, I do genuinely think this is a somewhat likely occurrence to have. He'll be lower rated. I haven't upgraded or downgraded this card, but I have tweaked the stats a little bit. 96 pace, just like we said with Daka, very quick, so therefore going to be very popular early doors. I kind of see this being a bit of an Adama Traore, not quite as physical, obviously, as Adama, who is built like an actual wall, but realistically, he's very quick. His shooting is a little bit below par, but decent dribbling. I think he could be an early game beast, and I think, again, he's relatively likely to get a one to watch because of the kind of transfer that it was. Staying in the Prem, we're going to Liverpool though. The only signing I'm fairly sure they made this window, which is Konate. And I think because it was the only signing Liverpool made, and because, again, Liverpool, especially in recent years, have been such a big team and are really coming back into, you know, I'm going to say the Liverpool of old, but I'm saying, you know, obviously Liverpool have been a real force to be reckoned with over the last couple of seasons, and so I expect Konate to be a relatively likely card to get one. I think there's quite a few French centre-backs. I'm fairly sure I even have another one on this list for today's potential one to watch cards, and we definitely had at least one. We had two, actually, I can tell you, on the last one. So French centre-backs obviously making a lot of moves, and I think Konate, again, is in and amongst it. I think he's relatively likely for the low-rated cards, and you know, one that are centre-backs getting loads and loads of informs and loads of special cards doesn't happen too frequently unless they manage to get goals or make huge goal line clearances and all this stuff. But Konate for me looks a very good starting card. If he doesn't get a one to watch, I think you'll see his base card in a lot of teams early days. I think it'll be expensive, but I think it'll be good. Another French player, but this one is a goalkeeper, and he's over in the Serie A. We're going to look at Maignan here. Now, I've upgraded him from an 82 to an 83. Did the opposite of Donnarumma, went from the French league to the Serie A, and has joined AC Milan to replace Donnarumma as well. And Maignan had a very good season last season, getting himself quite a bit of recognition, and was very good in FIFA as well. So I think a lot of people, Maignan really sort of, those who maybe didn't know of him particularly, I could probably recognise him or saw him on previous FIFAs, but I wouldn't be able to tell you much about him. But realistically, last FIFA, with how good he was in the game, a lot of people are going to be looking at Maignan this year, just early doors, just to see if he's any good. I expect him to be aboard this time, being an 83, and again, because of the kind of move that it is, and because of him being a goalkeeper, I think he's given him a half-decent chance of getting a one-to-watch card, because there haven't been loads and loads of big goalkeeper transfers. If there were, I must have missed a couple of them. But for me personally, I think Maignan's one of the bigger ones, and obviously going to AC Milan, who are playing some decent football right now, I think he's got a decent chance. And again, I expect him to be aboard, so it'll be a little bit expensive off the start, but he's a good card. It's a good card. Okay, now we're going to go to the Bundesliga, and we're going to look at the new Spanish player, Moriba. They picked him up from Barcelona. I might be wrong here. I'm fairly sure he didn't have an Ultimate Team card in FUT 21, but he was in Career Mode, and he was a 70 rated card in Career Mode. Now, I know he's had a relatively decent season. I know there's, and when I say decent season, I don't necessarily just mean like at Barcelona, but I know that there's been a lot of hype about him, a lot of talk of him really picking up his game and looking to be a decent little player. And he went for a decent fee. I think he went for about £20 million with quite a few add-ons and a sell-on fee. So there's quite a hefty fee around Moriba, but going from Barcelona to RB Leipzig, and I've predicted a 75. Now, obviously, if Moriba doesn't get a gold card, I don't expect to see him get a one to watch. We were sort of hinted at one by EA themselves, not even by, like, you know, a rumor or anything. It was literally EA that hinted at Bellingham last year, who was like a 69 rated silver one to watch. and it never happened. It just never materialized. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Mariba. I think because, again, it's a big team in Spain going to a big team in Germany. I personally think this has got a relatively good look to it to potentially be a one to watch, but it massively depends on the rating. Obviously, if he's not 75 or above, I don't think it will happen. But I think there's a decent-ish chance, and who knows, Mariba might get quite a bit of game time this season. I'm not too sure, but personally, I think this is an exciting one, a good link, obviously Spanish and in the Bundesliga, so some good chemistry possibilities there, and a decent little card. Okay, now we're going to go to a very different league. We're going to the Turkish league, and we're going to go to Pjanic here, who's made his move to Besiktas from Barcelona. Another transfer from Barcelona on this list, and I've given him quite a hefty downgrade. I don't really think it ever particularly worked out since his move from Juve to Barcelona, and again, I think, because of the fact that he has been a pretty big card. He was 85 rated in FIFA 21, and I predicted him to go down to an 82. It might be a little bit harsh. He might just go to an 83. But I think, again, like I said, we can always expect some slightly stinky cards in the one-to-watch promos, just to kind of even it out, especially if we've got the possibilities of, you know, Messi and Ronaldo being in like the same promo. They're always going to throw a few stinkers and a few curveballs in there, and I think the reason I'm saying this is a stinker is just because the Turkish league isn't one you particularly look to run particularly often in your ultimate teams, because they're not fun to link to. They haven't got an abundance of amazing cards, and so I think Pjanic is possibly going to get one because it's a move from a big club and he was a high-rated card last FIFA, and I do think he'll get a downgrade. So I think there's a possibility of it, but it's not what I'm overly excited about if it was to happen. Now to a move that happened right at the death of deadline day, and that is Saul's transfer to Chelsea. Now, he's obviously left Atletico Madrid and made his move over to Stamford Bridge, and I personally think that this is a relatively likely card to be given. I wasn't too sure on the rating though. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know whether to give him an upgrade. I don't think he'll get a downgrade, so I've kind of kept him at the same kind of rating, but just tweaked his stats a little bit. It was a tough one for me to call because it kind of happened very late into the window, and I didn't really have loads of time to look into it and sort of research it, so it was a tricky one to call. But I think Saul looks like he'll be a decent card. I don't think he'll be massively meta or anything. It's one of those cards that he's got a decent rating, but the face value of his stats just don't look like the rating he is. So it's a bit of a tricky one to call. But I think Saul's relatively likely, again, because of the kind of move that it is. But there's a lot of cards, a lot of players that have made that kind of move, like big team to big team, but like okay-ish middle ground card. So it's really tricky to call, but I think Saul's got an okay chance. And the last one on this list is another French centre-back making a move, and it is Kurt Zouma going from Chelsea to West Ham. This, I think, is, by the way, a fantastic deal. I think it's a great move from West Ham. I don't think it was particularly expensive. I think A, it was a good signing, B, he's a good player, and C, it's perfect for kind of what they needed. I don't think Zouma is as likely as the other French centre-backs we've looked at. I'm talking about Varane, I'm talking about Upamecano, and I'm talking about Konate. I personally think Zouma's going to have a fantastic season, and I would love to see this card. But I just think because of the kind of moves and the clubs that the other players have gone to, I think it just gives them a head start and gives them that extra chance to get in, which is a real shame for me because I'm a big fan of Zouma. He seems like a proper sound guy. I've seen loads of interviews with him. He just seems just genuinely like a nice person, and I'd love to see Zouma get a card because I also think he's a beast on the pitch as well. So it'd be interesting to see, but sadly out of all the French centre-backs, I do think he's the least likely, but one of the ones I'd actually be most excited to see if it did happen. But that is our second list of 11 one-to-watch cards. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. If you have, then please do leave a like on this video. It supports me, the video, and the channel out a whole bunch. If you're new to the channel, then please hit that sub button and turn notifications on to be told anytime that we upload a video. I'm away this week, so the uploads are a little bit not very frequent just because I'm not here. So I've had to sort of semi-bulk record like a couple of videos to get them up throughout the week. So apologies for that. But when I'm back, obviously, we're going to be live on Twitch again, so make sure you go and check out our Twitch, link in the description, Hursty Games YT over there. And while you're in the description, check out our channel sponsors, M21 and Real Footy Prints, and code Hursty will get you a discount at both. But for now, guys, I want to say a massive thank you for watching. I've been Tom. You guys have been awesome, and I'll see you soon. Look after yourselves, and of course, wash your hands.
His name is Hursty. Slap bald head, yeah, it'll probably hurt me. Bang top bins, it'll probably hurt you. Ginger, streamer, platform, YouTube. Drop a name in the chat, or say hello. Entertain, yeah, you already know. Capital H, yeah, I'm a read it slow. Hursty Games, yeah, you already know.